I have written a story. Because I haven't done anything for such a long time, I thought, what am I going to speak about? And I know people are waiting to hear another tale, but so I wrote this, and I'm going to read it as a story. It's all true, but I thought I was just inspired to write this. So that's what you're getting today. It's been a long time. It's been since May since we recorded anything, and I've missed it. But I couldn't do it, and neither could you. We're both out of action for quite a long time. So to everybody who's waited for this, here's my story. I've called it The Blue Stone, and it's a tale from my heart. And what is the meaning of the blue stone in our lives? I wonder. Is there a reason for the synchronicities that have happened? I wonder this too. So many years ago, it is only now that memory recalls incidents that happened when I listened to words spoken into the ears of my friend, now long since past. Words that only she heard. But I was privy to share in the wonder of those far-off days when our friendship explored everyday magic happening in our lives. We lived in two worlds then. The day-to-day world of the ordinary, mundane life of two women with husbands to care for, and so many, many children for myself to nurture, both my own and others who chose to cross my path. But there was this other world, a world out of time and space, a world peopled with ghosts, fairies, angels, men from the stars, and strange formations in the crops. Our morning work done, it was time to step into that other world at noon, when the power was at its strongest. We lived on an island, sometimes known as the Dragon Isle. Dragons are mythical creatures of legend, long before time was recorded by men and called his story. And that is exactly what it is, his story, known to us today as history. But it is not her story, because if her story was told, it would be one of womanhood, motherhood, nurturing, and nature. Not, as it has come down to us, of persecution, wars, fear, and a hierarchy of kings and even queens who stole the land from the common people with no compassion for the devastated lives left in their greedy, rampaging path. But it is women who have the knowing and the power and another story to tell. Her story is called My Story, or Mystery, and it lives within the heart of every woman. You know me as a storyteller, a mystery storyteller, and today I speak of a blue stone. And you may be wondering perhaps why I have chosen to speak of this and the synchronicities that continue to occur around this stone. It's been some months since I last spoke to you, and I have missed the opportunity to share my magic. For me, it has been a time of rest, a time of being loved, a time of going within to assess the meaning of life in these strange times that are upon us all. As I have come to understand through the teachings of the cosmic beings who communicate their knowledge and wisdom at intervals, there is no more historic time left. In fact, what we are facing on the world stage is no more or less than ourselves illustrating who and what we have been and done in the so-called historic past. Those selves are being presented to every individual in what we perceive to be the reality before us, whether we like it or not. Now, my previous stories have brought up the subject of reincarnation and the different lives we have led, some good and some downright evil. I now understand these lives were not linear, but simultaneous. And now it is time to look at what we have created with the potential to change the consciousness of our lives for the better or not. And by the way, I also understand that those lives are still there for us to tap into. The people we were are there still. And this is what we're seeing out there. Copies of ourselves, really, doing what we've done. But it's time for change. In other words, our historic past is right in front of us, and it is not a very pleasant experience, but nevertheless one we must all go through and make a choice. That choice is service to self or service to others, either or. You make your choice and you live by it. You may be wondering where a blue stone comes into this narrative. It has its place, otherwise I would not have been presented with the Synchronicities, my personal phone line to the universe. And why is it appearing now? There is so much more to this story than at first meets the eye. Now, some of you may have read the book Dreamscape, recently published by Robin Wells, who you had the opportunity to meet on my most recent videos. For those that haven't read it, you will not know of the blue stone that has been making its appearance in his mystical journeys. For although Dreamscape has been presented as fictional, you may read into it what you will. Indeed, there is magic about, and many words of wisdom abound within its pages. There is mention of a blue stone appearing when he finds himself in an almost mesmeric state, with his mind in neutral and open to visionary experiences. A blue stone. A blue stone? Something stirred in my memory, awakening me to remember a certain vicar, Francis Bamford, Vicar of Newchurch and Dean of East Wight, who passed in 1934, but returned to speak and teach the Trinity, as he referred to the three of us at the time, Margot, Walter and me. Francis spoke of many things, But once he spoke of a blue stone, a stone of importance. It was the 30th of October 1985. We visited his church, and these were his words on that memorable day. Welcome, once again, my children. I have been to a much higher place and seen the God of creation since you were last here. And I can only say to you, the way you nearly worship stones is the greatest thing you can do. If you study the formation of stones, you will know that Revelations chapter 4 is the description that was a vision of reality in the first few verses. So the fish is not just a symbol of Christianity, but as you can know, the sardine. Now I wondered what that meant at the time we received this. And I know now that it referred to the Sardius stone. And it was sometimes called the sardine stone. So the sardine is the symbol of Christianity, the fish symbol. But it actually is it is a stone itself, the sardius stone. Now to your minds, you all want knowledge. You are getting it. And to sit here for a few moments in time will allow your minds, each of you, to realise what you want and go towards it. And Francis continued then, now as there are things happening in this locality, I cannot give you anything in this church. But later, upon your walk, which I presume you will have, I will show you a stone, which is the centre of a cross, which should not be there at all. More explanation one day, but not yet. Tranquility is what all are striving for, and to reach one's goal is to receive the tranquility of the mind. Now go your way, and bless you all, my children. I'm pleased you came. I do love Francis. He was so gentle. And there's a Celtic cross standing in Newchurch churchyard. And I took a photograph of it one day, and it was surrounded by blue crocus at the time I took it. Purpley blue crocus. It's absolutely beautiful. It's the only stone left standing in the graveyard because all the gravestones have been taken away and made into a path around the churchyard, which, by the way, Francis wasn't too happy about. So there's this wonderful big Celtic cross standing in the churchyard. And this was where we found another Celtic cross with a blue stone in the middle of it. It was about that big, and a blue stone was at the point of the cross. And it stands alone in the churchyard with similar fish symbols on it. And he, being dead, yet speaketh, engraved on the circle of the large cross of this, where the circle goes round of the Celtic cross. It said, he being dead, yet speaketh. Francis was indeed dead, according to the understanding of humanity, but nevertheless, he was speaking to us. So we returned again on the 3rd of November 1985 to hear further words from Francis. How nice to see you here again, my dear children. I welcome you and know you followed instructions and read the parts of the Bible I told you of. Also, you found the stone, which in its way is important. You have also read Exodus, which may be a little misleading, as the priests of old gained power from the stones, but used the power in the wrong way. So the 2 unknown stones were removed from the earth by the Creator. A stone of importance, you may like to think of him. The 2 unknown stones, by the way, were Urim and Thummim. And now the stone you found, although worthless, was the nearest colour to the stone Thummim, which was so powerful. Now, having studied Revelations and learnt more about the stones and the angels, you left your body and saw what you thought was a sun. This was not so. It was a glowing stone, the beginning and the end, the Alpha and the Omega. This was the most important of all experiences you have had so far. The time was right for this. Time is important, yet time is unimportant, yet very important. You will be shown the importance of the word time. Now, leaving Matthew, Mark, Luke and John alone, study Revelations again, and also Ezekiel, which deals with those of other planets. Study the primitive races in the old days, and the stone circles, and more knowledge will be gained. Remember, my children, you gain knowledge, and you, who is so gifted and right, can teach the others that no one else can do in such a way. Regain your strength now by walking in the field, and remember, time is important. Farewell for now, and the stones give forth love. So that was information given to Margot from Francis all those years ago, and yet it's still important today. I made a note here. On our walk in the field, we found a timepiece, a pocket watch. And Margot told me of her out-of-body experience, of how, when approaching what she thought was a sun, but was in fact a glowing stone, she felt heat from its centre, but its wiggly rays were icy cold, and the shape was oval rather than round. Now, I thought, for those who've not read the book of Revelations, and I'm sure many people are reading it today because of what's going on in the world, these are the verses that Francis suggested we read. After this I looked, and behold, a door was open in heaven. And the first voice which I heard was as it were of a trumpet, talking with me, which said, "Come up hither, and I will show you things which must be hereafter." And immediately I was in the Spirit, and behold, a throne was set in heaven, and one sat upon the throne. And he that sat was to look upon like a jasper and a sardine stone. And there was a rainbow around the throne, in sight like unto an emerald. And round about the throne were 24 seats, and upon the seats I saw 24 elders sitting, clothed in white raiment, and they had on their heads crowns of gold. You can imagine it, can't you? And out of the throne proceeded lightnings and thunderings and voices. And there were 7 lamps of fire burning before the throne, which are the 7 spirits of God. And before the throne there was a sea of glass, like unto crystal. And in the midst of the throne and round about the throne were 4 beasts, full of eyes, before and behind. And that is all I had from Francis about the importance of stones. And I now understand that the sardine stone is also known as Sardius, a variety of cornelian, and a reddish orange in colour. And jasper is opaque, usually red, yellow, brown or green. Now, I was in the charity shop the other day and I saw these 4 stones which were for sale, and I said I must have those. I can't leave stones in charity shops, they have to come home with me. And one of them, which I have here, I think is sardius or carnelian. So that was the colour. Lovely stone. Now I have to talk to you about rock, because of course rock is stone. And as I was reading the above from Revelations, the information came to mind that had been given to Robin about rock and the importance of rock. And that could be relevant here as I'm speaking about stones, but a blue stone in particular. So this is what Robin received. We are going to move temporarily to the process of what rock is. All planets are rock in some form, and they move around the universe, gathering and bringing information. Now that rock gets covered in fauna, and that fauna then allows nature to be created. But behind all nature is rock. Rock is a spiralling modality of many, many different cells. They don't all touch. Look at a stone or a pebble on the beach. If you could look at it and see its molecules, none of them touch. There is space between all things. We will not go into the quantum of this, but what one is stating here is rock is not perceived in the way it should be. It carries and harnesses so much information. It brings about change that you have no relevance whatsoever to understand. The child, Robin, recently had to connect to rock and did not in his own mind, but did in another. That connectivity to rock was not just about holding the rock like a crystal and picking up on its componentization. It was about connecting back to what it is that we have all come from. Because without rock there would be no fauna, and without fauna there would be no life. Without life there would be no soul, and without soul there would be no evolvement or devolvement in all the natural processes that occur on the land. Now, isn't that something to think about? There's all these rocks flying around the universe, collecting and gathering information. And when we have a little piece like this, it holds information. And those, like Margot, can hold a rock, and Robin and Mary can hold a piece of rock and pick up the information that it holds. This is why those crystal skulls are so important. The blue stone Thummim. The high priests, written of in the book Exodus in the Old Testament, wore a breastplate that held 12 stones of power for communion with God. It was called the breastplate of judgment. When the Thummim and Urim were placed upon it, these stones held the power of showing the truth to the wearer. That's interesting. It's a stone of truth. Thummim is a stone. When you use it, you know whether the truth is being spoken or not. We could do with some today. And also, Joseph Smith, the founder of the Mormon faith, possibly used the power of both these stones to assist in the translation of the golden plates found upon the hill of Cumorah, shown to him by the angel Moroni. This is not a surety, but he did have a brown seer stone that he is known to have used. Now, as I was writing this, I was browsing through the book by Dolores Cannon, Convoluted Universe, Book 2. And some interesting words hit my consciousness on page 337. She was regressing someone, and suddenly I was having a synchronistic moment as I read these words. The light will come to her from the stones, blue stones. They will be the ones she will use to speak truth. And then the lights will come, and she will know the path to follow. It will be information that will come from the light. We see this coming from alternate realities. This one will get the information from a contact in an alternate reality. Now, we were told many years ago that light holds information. The blue stones speak the truth. And Robin's information does indeed come from an alternate reality, beyond the stars. The universe was on the phone again, and it was time to take note. Blue stones, the truth, Thummim, Francis Bamford, all these things adding up over the years, all the magic coming together. I knew there was something important in Dreamscape, as this blue stone had been insistent on drawing Robin's attention to it. There is a chapter in his book, and it's called The Stone in the Sword, concerning King Arthur, not the sword in the stone. I have mentioned previously that it was tales of King Arthur and his Knights of the Round Table that so enthralled my childhood. He was my hero and remains so to this day. And perhaps now I begin to understand why. But it has taken a lifetime to get somewhere near the truth. And you are given many, many curved balls along the way. Now the following we'd received in an earlier communication. This was from Robin, and this was quite some time ago, before he wrote the book. And I love the way they referred to Arthur. Our dear child, King Arthur. That came out of the blue. He was a soldier, but he was not the soldier as such. He was a soldier that carried the vitality of universal knowledge. He did not fight for the cause. He stood for the cause. The light, the chalice that shines from him and continues to do so, is coming back to you all, my children. He, us, you, all have the connectivity with the Christ energy and are all the same thing. So Arthur carried the Christ energy. Now, in Robin's 12 journeys in his book, which are journeys of truth, he experienced them all. His guide throughout the journeys was Alexis. And you could think of him as a guide or guardian who met him at the gate, a portal to another dimension of experience, where Robin was given aspects of truth. So he would meet Alexis, and Alexis, they would then go into a completely different dimension. And by the way, there is a beautiful painting done by the artist Akian Kramaric. It is called The Light, and I suggest you look it up on YouTube, as this will give you an idea of the bridge that Robin speaks about. She has also done the most amazing picture of Jesus, and she did it when she was about a very, very young child. It's absolutely amazing. I'm sure many of you will know of it. This is an excerpt from Robin's book, Dreamscape. Alexis appeared alongside me in this fairy tale dream and spoke of King Arthur and the mighty Excalibur that held a blue stone in its handle. This extraordinary gem came into my life and mysterious changes began. The story of Avalon and King Arthur's Excalibur is steeped in secrecy for good reason. The medieval blacksmiths cast a mighty tool layered with precision and majesty to uphold a royal bloodline. King Arthur was an advanced soul and ruler of his kingdom, but he was not humanity's ruler per se. He was the keeper of knowledge, and he held the responsibility of the Christ energy bestowed upon earth. Each kingdom on earth practiced their version of universal truth, which was distributed wisely, and not just to those with wealth and status. Unfortunately, dark shadows chased the light from weaker mortals because of an action committed many years earlier. Someone had to stand for the truth, but the bounty was being crushed and slipping out of grasp. King Arthur's royal seal broke thousands of years earlier, and this action set the precedent for the hard decision he would make. Camelot beamed out a message like a beacon, and this message was, "We are universal beings, and we remember who we are." Came in light, a pseudonym for Camelot, was not a fallacy. It was the last bastion of light standing against the darkness that prevailed over earth. Knowledge bestowed upon King Arthur was to come at great personal cost, and a battle was coming his way that he could never win. He needed to maintain the propriety of universal knowledge on earth and uphold the principles of light. Excalibur was constructed to cut the veil that coiled itself round the kingdoms like a serpent. Arthur recognised the feeling of aggression before witnessing it, and he was a master swordsman and could rally with eyes either opened or closed. The duel ahead would only have one victor. The drawbridge of his kingdom was lowered, and Arthur rode alone to face the dark stewards on the other side of the bridge. He held the utility of light, known as Excalibur, high above his head, and reminded all of humanity, both past, present, and future, that we must remember who we are. The embers of light were lost when Arthur was defeated, and those that represented his cause suffered similar fates, and tears of sorrow formed a lake in their memory. Arthur and all that stood for good and illumination were frozen in time beneath its murky depths. Serpents guard those souls to avoid escape, and the utility of light, known as Excalibur, lay among them, minus one of its jewels. Following Arthur's demise, humankind and nature began a slow spiral out of control. Fear and repression compromised humanity's expression, creating long-term issues that started war, anger, revenge, and so on. The newly implemented kings and queens, along with their manufactured gods, marched soldiers to war in the name of righteousness. The natural world, once revered, changed beyond recognition, and a New Testament in history was written. It was not humanity that King Arthur fought against. It was the energy that cast darkness where there was once light. And this Arthur vehemently resisted to the end. We do not record King Arthur and his historic legacy in true form, and the regime that followed compromised the genuine connections on planet Earth. The slow stranglehold on humanity would last for 1,000 years. Religions became hiding places for false gods and untold horror. male and female alike, were stripped of unity and wisdom, with blame sitting firmly on the shoulders of governments and state leaders. These puppets were just pawns with their strings pulled by an unseen dark force. Witch hunts went in search of all those that reserved the right to hold wisdom and knowledge. So-called gallant knights in shining armour travelled globally, raping and pillaging, systematically assassinating the bloodline of historic man. The seed of Christ was hunted like a wild boar, and the power of good was suppressed in the art of war. So-called honourable men were manipulated and served dishes of impropriety. Few observed any wrongdoing while assisting false gods. Jewels, titles, and lands were the rewards. But sadly, they had sold their souls to these unnatural mentors. The planet became a recycling operation, and humanity was stripped of universal knowledge and cast into the incarnate loop with no option to return to the universe. The wheel of karma. Silent whimpers of those that remembered were soon lost, like lambs in the darkness. History, his story, was rewritten to serve the rulers, and corruption clouded human life with unseen horrors committed by this diminished humankind. The long-term plan was for humanity to be robotized, with no ability to hang on to their soul. Avalon, a synonym for a veil on, is the veil thrown around the planet that keeps humanity confined in a fishbowl. Life after life of karmic misery renders the soul weak and incapable of recognizing the ramifications of eternal weakness. A gender-neutral society and starvation of love will squeeze out the soul like a tapered cork. Marauding artificial intellect will offer false hope and take you away from the place that is safe. King Arthur's story of great elucidation involved the responsibility of saving his nation. They set a blue stone on the handle of the mighty chalice known as the Sword of Light. Somehow, Robin realised that as time rolled back, this part of history involved him. So that was the information that Robin received about King Arthur. Now, about a week ago, about a fortnight ago now, I suppose, I ordered a book, and it's called The Awakening Letters, and it's written by Cynthia Sandys and Rosamund Lehman. And this is a book that I've bought for the 4th time because it's a very important book. It's been a very important book in my life. And when I read it for the first time, I lent it out and I didn't get it back. So I bought it again. And fool that I am, I lent it out again and I didn't get it back. And I bought it for the 3rd time. And again, I didn't get it back. Anyway, I've been looking for it on the internet and I hadn't been able to find it. And recently one came up. And I bought it and it cost me £20 this time, which was quite a lot of money for a book that's, written a long time ago. Anyway, Lady Cynthia Sandys was an excellent channel, for information. And many spirits were brought forward to speak through her clairaudient gift. The following is an excerpt from a communication received in the grounds of Glastonbury Abbey in 1944. Christ did not come in order to bring us another step further, but a leap forward into the unknown regions of the love plains. It was as if the Great Spirit had suddenly grown impatient and a bridgehead had to be won across the river of ignorance. Christ came as a commando, equipped with one thing, which he came to impress upon the ether. It was love. His followers, for many centuries, tried to follow his example of simplicity. They had to remain aloof from other creeds while they were still struggling upon the slippery slopes of disbelief. These athletes who followed their leader had to ignore all detail and see only the goal that lay ahead. Since then, we have gathered knowledge, and time has enabled the slow-moving philosophies to catch up with the advance guard. And certain places have been prepared where the two worlds of thought and feeling can meet. Glastonbury and Iona are two of the meeting places where the ancient wisdom and the Christ love unite. Not fundamentally the teaching as Christ taught, but after centuries of pain, suffering and disappointment, the essence of the original teaching has emerged, and here in Glastonbury we find the Christ ray enfolding the abbey and all the ruined buildings. The important point is that now, at this moment, the complete union of the two worlds is vital. It was effected once in the person of King Arthur and his knights, who, by the way, are as true as any other historical fact. But the world was unwilling to adopt his creed. He was killed and his followers scattered, while the material age of thought flowed over his memory. But all the essential vibrations were locked away in the atmosphere until the time they could be restored to the human race. These words from the awakening letters were the words I had to find to verify what Robin received about King Arthur carrying the Christ energy. And Cynthia Sandys was another medium, and this was received before Robin was even born. And that's all I have to tell you today. I hope you found it interesting. I just find it amazing, and I love the fact that the Christ energy is here with us if we wish to work with it, which I do. Constantly, always stay connected to that energy, not the other energy, the false energy that fed us all over the world, that feeds fear and misery and death. But the wonderful thing is, there is no death. There's just another adventure waiting for you. Another adventure. I'm nearer it than you, Sam.